Good morning. Good to see you as we gather together on this Lord's Day. God is good all the time. Invite the children to come forward for the children's time. Good morning. How are you guys today? All right. Hey, is there anything that you're afraid of? Not really. Huh? Not afraid of the dark? Not afraid of a bully? You're not a bully, are you? The sweeper. You don't like the sweeper? Yeah. Yeah, my dogs don't like the sweeper either. Yeah. It doesn't bother me a whole lot one way or the other, unless of course I have to move my feet around too much. All right. Anything else? How about bugs? You guys like bugs? No, not really. Well, that's good because that means maybe you've used something like this before. Have you used bug repellent, insect spray? Yeah. Get it all on your face and around the neck and ears and on the arms. I have to do that sometimes in the summer at my house over in Waterford because the house is close enough to Lake LaBeouf that I get a lot of insects. Yeah, the mosquitoes are pretty bad some days. So I kind of get in the habit of making use of some insect repellent to keep them away, especially from the ears. That's just kind of annoying. But I don't like using it all the time. I only use it if I'm getting bothered because I also don't want all the chemicals and the smells and so forth around me. And so, we go camping, and a lot of times we don't use any bug spray at all until the bugs get bad, and then we'll use a little spray to keep them away. So bug spray can really be a lifesaver, because it helps you from not having to spend as much time itching. I mean, have you gotten bit up badly? You get big welts sometimes from some of those mosquitoes, don't you? Luke has. No, you haven't. And they can itch and they scratch. You have to scratch them then, and so it's just better not to have them bother you, right? Okay. Well, the bug spray is good for keeping the bugs away. We have a God that is a powerful God, and God is ready to take away our fears. God doesn't want us to be afraid. God wants us to be able to go through life without having to be afraid. Sometimes people are afraid of things like the water, for instance, so they may never try going swimming because the water is something fearful for them, or they may never go out onto a boat. Some people are afraid of heights, and so they might never go up a ladder or do something like that. Some people are afraid to just go out, to be among people, to be around others. And God wants to take away our fears. And regardless of what our fear is, God loves us through and through and seeks to give us courage to be able to face our fears that we hold in our lives. God will look out for us and God will protect us. And then we can face our fears knowing that God has our back. You know what that means? You know what it means to have somebody have your back? Well, I know your mom probably has eyes in the back of her head, right? But I know I don't, and you don't either, do you? So we can't see what's coming from behind us. And so like right now, I'm trusting all of you, everybody in this room has my back right now because you can see what I can't see behind me. And so that's what it means to have our back, that somebody's watching out for the parts of you where you can't see to keep you safe. God has our back. So we use the bug spray to take care of the bugs, and let's let God take care of our fears. Let's pray. God, we give thanks that you are a God that is powerful, that you are a God that is all-knowing, that you are a God that can take away our fears and help us to live in comfort and love, to know that you are there with us, that you've got our back, that you're watching out for us, and that you will be with us and that you will take care of us. We pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you for coming up. Our scripture this morning is from the 8th chapter of Romans, verse 15. The spirit you received does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father. Word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. John Wesley's standard sermons are a part of the foundational teaching of the Wesleyan Methodist doctrine. And so instead of using the Old English of 300 years ago, these will be preached as Allen's Paraphrase version, developed using the sermons by John Wesley as published by Wesley Center Online, and outlines of the standard sermons by Reverend Dr. Kevin Watson of Candler School of Theology. The 9th of the 44 standard sermons of John Wesley is entitled, The Spirit of Bondage and Adoption. The Apostle Paul is speaking to those who are children of God by faith when he says, the spirit you received does not make you slaves, so that you live in fear again. Rather, the spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. Now, some translations share that as the spirit of bondage and fear. And there is a wide distance between a life of bondage and slavery and a life as a son or daughter, even if that relationship is by adoption. Those whose lives are influenced by slavish fear cannot be children of God. Too many people do not think of God. They have neither the fear of God nor the love of God in their hearts. Perhaps you remember a time in your life when this described you. A natural man is one who neither fears nor loves God. One who is under the spirit of bondage and fear is under the law, and one who has exchanged the spirit of bondage and fear for the spirit of love is under grace. So we shall take a look at each of these three states of the soul. Let us first look at the natural man. The soul of a natural man is in deep sleep. The natural man cannot distinguish between spiritual good and spiritual evil. The natural man lives in the valley of the shadow of death, without knowledge and without understanding of spiritual things. The natural man is a stranger to the law of God and a happiness of a life lived under grace through Christ. The natural man is at rest. They are at peace and they are secure because the darkness prevents them from seeing the precipice upon which they stand. He does not fear because he does not know. And this lack of knowledge and lack of understanding has nothing to do with one's level of education. For one with education will understand themselves to be a person of free will, allowing them moral choice, but they will view these choices of evil and good as it seems best in their own eyes. And the natural man may congratulate their own wisdom and goodness with great joy, yet still gratify the desires of the flesh, the desire of the eye, or the pride of life. And the natural man's happiness may be illustrated by their affluence in wealth, possessions, clothing, food, drink, and play. The natural man thinks he walks in great liberty with his own self-righteousness. The natural man is a servant of sin, committing it daily. Yet he fears no condemnation. He fears not because God is merciful and Christ died for sinners, because both inwardly and outwardly, though, he is unholy. He has no desire to conquer sin within his life. And whether the individual is a scandalous transgressor or a reputable, decent sinner, the natural man does not know the power of godliness. How then can one be convinced of sin? How then can one be brought into repentance? How can one come under the law, receiving the spirit of bondage unto fear? Well, let us then take a look at the state of one who is under the law. In ways we do not always understand, God touches the heart of the one who is asleep. They are suddenly shaken into awareness of the danger that their soul is in. The light of Christ penetrates the shadow of death. They perceive the condition of their soul and the judgment under which they live, that justice that God shall unfold. The inward spiritual meaning of the law of God begins to come clearly into focus, and following the letter of the law is no longer enough. The one who saves us from our sin requires we follow the spirit of that law. The sinner now sees the heart as God sees it, naked, stripped bare. His heart is bare, and he sees it is all sin, filled with evil. He knows he deserves to be cast into the pits of hell, receiving the wages of sin, the death of body and soul. The natural man, now awakened from his dream, is no longer at rest, no longer at peace, no longer feels secure. His joy and happiness have vanished. He now feels the anguish of a wounded spirit. The heart is now sorrowful for the blessings lost. He feels remorse and is filled with the fear of God and the fear of God's wrath. The poor, sinful, guilty soul is terrified of everything, of nothing, of shadows and reflections, even of a leaf blown in the wind. He trembles at the name of death. And now the struggle begins to break loose from sin. But sin is mightier than he. Sin continues both day and night. The guilt and the misery continue and increase. The more he strives, the further away he feels from God. And the more he feels the weight of the chains of sin. For he is still in bondage and fear. And this is the struggle for one who lives under the law. How do we shake off this burden of sin? We long for liberty, for power and love. Who shall deliver us from the bondage of sin? None other than by Jesus Christ, our Lord. So then, let us look at one who is under grace. As the bondage ends, we are no longer under the law, but we are under grace. We have found grace and favor in the sight of God. We now, under the spirit of adoption, can cry out, Abba, Father. The sinner cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and God delivered them from their distress. The sinner hears the still voice of God as the goodness of God passes by. And by that, God shows mercy and shows forgiveness. As the heavenly light breaks in upon the soul, the sinner sees the iniquities, his iniquities, laid upon the Lamb of God, as Christ takes his sin, this sin, to the cross. And by the blood of Christ, he is reconciled to God. The guilt and the power of sin ends. As Paul says in Galatians, I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I that live, but Christ that liveth within me. And that life which I now live in the flesh, I live in faith, the faith which is in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up for me. Remorse and sorrow of the heart are gone. One's own spirit is no longer wounded. The bondage has ended. The heart stands secure in the love of God. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty, freedom from guilt, freedom from fear, freedom from sin itself. The labor of Christ is not in vain. The fowler's snare is broken. Being now made free from sin, we are servants of righteousness. We are to become a living witness of the glorious liberty as children of God. We have the peace of God which surpasses understanding. We can rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. We have received the spirit of adoption, and there now we can cry out, Abba, Father. This Spirit continues at work to deliver our hearts from the loves of the world, from our lust of the flesh, from the lust of our eye, from the pride of our life, from anger and pride and all vile affections, that we may perform zealous good works for God. In summary, the natural man neither fears nor loves God. One under the law fears God, but still trembles. And one under grace loves the Lord. The first walks in utter darkness. The second sees the light of hell. And the third rejoices in the light of heaven. The one who sleeps in death has a false peace. He that is awakened has no peace at all, and he that believes has true peace, filling and ruling in his heart. The heathen has a false liberty of licentiousness, while the one under the law carries a heavy burden of bondage, and the believer enjoys the true liberty of being a child of God. The natural man neither conquers nor fights. The man under the law fights with sin, but cannot conquer. And the man under grace is more than a conqueror through him that loves him. It is not sufficient for us to divide people by their sincerity. You may be sincere whether you are under grace, under the law, or still asleep. It is whether you have faith. Do you love God? Or do you fear God? Or is it neither one nor the other? Do you sin willingly? Do you sin unwillingly? Or have you been delivered from the power of sin within your life? Or perhaps these three states of the soul mingle together within you. At those times in which God sees the good within you, God shines a light into the darkness as a sign of hope for you. For we are to run with patience the race that has been set before us. But do not deceive yourselves. One may be compassionate and benevolent, affable, courteous, generous, friendly, even meek and patient. He may shake off the vice and attain virtue, abstaining from evil, doing good, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, attending worship, reading the scriptures, praying in private, and yet he may not know himself nor know God, having neither repented nor believing the gospel. And if he were awakened from this sleep, convicted of his sin, filled with fear of the wrath of God, and deeply desiring to cast off every sin, yet has no living faith, neither having received the spirit of adoption, and therefore unable to cry out, Abba, Father, he is still not under grace. Beware then, if you call yourself Christian, that you do not fall short of the mark of thy high calling. Rest not. God has prepared better things for you. You are to rejoice and love like the angels of God. You are to pray without ceasing. You are to give thanks in all things. And you are to do the will of God on earth as it is in heaven. And therefore, this day, let us enter into prayer. Let us enter into prayer as we pray this sermon using the words of Dr. Paul Chilcote from Praying in the Wesleyan Spirit. Let us pray. Loving parent God, when I look at the children you have created to be a part of your family, I see three kinds of people. Those who neither fear nor love you. Those who fear you, but their fear is a terrible burden. And those who have exchanged their fear for love through Christ. How tragic it is to witness the lives of those who simply sleep through this life. They truly believe they are free, but they are in bondage of ignorance and unfettered selfishness. They do not know you or care to know you, and they do not know themselves. But those who have come to know you and themselves in relation to you may still be in bondage. For those convicted of their sin, realize how far they are from what you call them to be. For them, the pleasing dream, delusive rest, false peace, and vain security of the sleeper is vanished. Instead, they are filled with fear by a sense of your righteousness. Realizing how impotent they are, eventually they cry out to you, who shall deliver me? All praise to you, merciful God, for those who discover their true identity in you and exchange their fear for grace and love. Their eyes are open to see the loving, gracious God. They experience your pardoning love in their lives through their faith in Jesus Christ. They are released from the guilt and the power of sin. They no longer fear your wrath. They have freedom from sin. They not only strive against, but have victory over sin. In short, they have received the spirit of adoption. Having once been outside your loving embrace, they now feel the arms of your love and grace around them. May all of your children come to know what it means to live in your grace, to be members of your family by adoption. Grant to every child the joyous light of heaven here on earth, the gift of true inner peace, the liberty of living as your child, and victory over all those forces that separate us from your unconditional love. Help us all to strive for the high mark of our calling in Christ. Help us to move from sleep through fear and into the depth of your love for us all. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. our celebration of giving today, I want to take a few moments to share with you about being at the homeless shelter last Sunday evening, excuse me. Bill Clute and I went into the shelter. This year it's a little bit different than it's been in the past, if you've been one to be there in the past. And so let me tell it to you a little bit through the eyes of the clients. This was at the First Baptist Church of the Covenant, and we used the large hall that they have as the sleeping area. Now, in the past, that has typically been set up with about 70 cots. This year, it's only set up with 35 to allow for distancing. And then you go up a set of steps to a landing area where the restrooms are. The restrooms have showers, and there's a side room to the one side where in the past they've had a clothing bank, and the other side room is where they had the women's cots, where they would have about 20 women able to sleep there. That room they did not use for the cots this year. They kept everybody on the main floor. Just one row of cots to the side was for the women, and then all the men in the center area. The room that had been for the women's cots before, they used for clothing storage, although they don't run the store operation where the clients could simply come through to get those items. I'll say more about that in a moment. And then the room that they used for the clothing store in the past is a room that actually has a door to the outside as well. And so rather than coming in the big doors into the main room, which frankly, every time those doors opened and closed on a very cold night, kind of sent a chill across the room, they now bring the clients in through the smaller door to the upstairs room. Now they do that because as they bring them in just a couple of people at a time, so that they can take their temperature and ask them a few questions about whether they've been exposed to anyone with COVID and so forth. And then they're able to go from there down the table. There's some Ziploc bags filled with toilet articles that they can pick those up if they need them. They also have the opportunity to get a fresh pair of socks every night. And then they go out onto the landing where they hold them for a moment, so then they can go down to the table down there where Chris Detter, the coordinator, would ask them further questions about what their needs were. Now that doesn't happen every night, but on Sunday night, because the temperatures were turning colder, they had long underwear to be able to go give out. And so they were checking in to see what size each person would need. There were some that also expressed a need for gloves, a couple that expressed for coats, one that expressed for boots. And then from there, they would go to their cots where they could set their possessions down and settle their bed for the night. If they've been a client there already, their blankets are already at their bed, kept in a garbage bag through the day, and so they get them out and lay them out and prepare their cot. As they're ready, they go over to the kitchen and can pick up the sack lunch that we'd prepared for them. They'd already had a chance to eat dinner at the upper room before they got there. And so this is basically provided as a snack. Our particular sack lunch or snack had either a ham or a cheese sandwich on Kaiser bun, had some mustard and mayonnaise packets in it. There was a cookie and a fruit cup there as well. And then for breakfast snack, they get a hot cooked breakfast at Bishop's Place, but we provided them with a red velvet, those big Sam's Club red velvet muffins. So now we were told to come prepared for 40. As it turned out, there were only 19 that particular evening, but that's okay because what they did then is the extra set of snacks that we brought for the evening, had they been full, they gave out to them as they left in the morning, so that provided them something to eat at lunchtime during the day. So I don't feel bad about that at all, that we were able to help out that much further. One of the things that has changed from the past is that Before, they could simply go outside whenever they wanted to for a smoke break. They changed that process in the beginning of the season in November to be 3 15-minute breaks spread throughout the evening. Well, they found that really wasn't quite effective, didn't really quite work the way they had hoped that way. For some, it was not long enough of a break. For some, by the third break, they were already sound asleep. And so what they've done now is they've changed it to a half-hour break done at 9 p.m. The clients are let in at 7:30, and so at 9, they're able to go out. They have a half hour before they have to return, and then they can go back to their cots. There are no tables to gather in as a matter of COVID protocols, and so they simply spend their time at their individual cots. After most had gotten checked in, one of the other volunteers and myself, there are 6 or 7 who are there pretty much the same volunteers every night, and so we are simply supplementing those volunteers. I went with one of those volunteers into the clothing storage area, and we took the list then of clothing needs and put together each individual's orders. Put a sticky note on it so we knew which pile was for who with their cot number and their name. And then we delivered those. And as we delivered them, sometimes we found we might have forgotten an item or that they'd forgotten to tell us about something else that they needed. And so then we'd have a couple trips back and forth and be able to take care of the rest of those that way. Frankly, most chose to, once the smoke break was done, chose simply to go to sleep. So by 10:30, it was a pretty calm and peaceful night. Some had gotten showers in the course of the evening. They had the opportunity to sign up for those, so there again would only be one in the shower area at a time, and so they were able to do that. I want to say a little more about the COVID and the check-in process. If you had been a client already, you simply got your temperature taken. If your temperature was high, then they had an arrangement with Avalon Hotel to be able to send you over there that you could be in isolation for the night. And so they did have that process to be able to do that. For those who had not previously been clients that show up for the first time, upon their arrival, they would receive a COVID rapid test. If they passed a COVID rapid test, then they'd be allowed to proceed through the rest of the process to get their cot and their snack and be able to take a shower if they wanted to. The part of the system I'm not happy with, and I know that our coordinators weren't happy with, and they are working the process to see if that can be changed, is that if you are not already in the system and you test positive on the COVID test, they have no alternative for you. You will simply be turned away. Now, some may find their way at that point to the hospital, but that didn't set well with a number of us as we were talking around between us. So hopefully they'll be able to get that resolved soon with some other process for those individuals. I share all of this because, one, the 2 churches are taking care of the cost of the meals. We went as representatives of the 2 congregations, Bill and I. We have another opportunity for 2 people to do that in March. And so if it's something you'd like to do, let me know. Would be happy to have you go and be able to take part in this ministry. Of the 19 that were there were probably 8 to 10 that Bill and I recognized from before. They are chronic homeless. But the coordinator was sharing with us that there have been some this year that are for the first time in their lives become homeless. For those ones, it's a pretty rough road because they don't know the ropes. They don't know what all the options are that are available. And so they have to find their way through the process. And it can be a very demoralizing process sometimes for people to sort that out. And so it's important that we hold hold the homeless in our prayers. Homelessness happens for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it may be by choice, but rarely. More often it is because of mental health situations that may prevent them from being able to hold their life together in a meaningful way. For some, it may be simply the economic times that have set upon them and put them onto the street. But this is a ministry that's here in our local area that we have the opportunity to be a part of, to help support, both in terms of our being there as volunteers, providing for some food, but simply keeping in our prayers as well. And so I celebrate that we have the opportunity to be blessed, that we can help, and that we can make a difference. And I celebrate that we have the opportunity to help others, not only through this particular ministry, but in a variety of ways. We do remind you that over the next few weeks, we are collecting shampoo to be our February love gift to the refuge as well. Super Bowl, SUPER, is just around the corner. We still don't know who's playing for that, but that's kind of an opportunity for us to gather a variety of foods together for a Super Bowl, SOUPER, as we provide food for our local food pantry as well. And so we invite you to take part in those giving opportunities as well. Receive now this blessing. Go now in the peace of Christ. Go in the strength of God's Holy Spirit placed upon you. Go forth and share the good news that others too may be awoken from their sleep and come to know the risen Lord in their heart. Go now in the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit this day and every day. And all of God's people said, Amen. Go now in the peace of Christ.